Millionaire's new wife kicked mother-in-law out of the mansion. At Christmas dinner, everyone is shocked when they see a 40-year-old recording. The grand mansion of William Kensington stood proudly against a cold December night, its windows aglow with the warm, inviting light of holiday decorations. Outside, the air was crisp, and a light dusting of snow covered the manicured lawns, creating a picturesque scene that seemed to emerge from a holiday postcard. Inside, however, the atmosphere was anything but serene. Amelia Kensington stood in the opulent living room, her fingers nervously tracing the delicate patterns on the fabric of her emerald green dress. She had chosen it carefully, wanting to impress her new family on this significant occasion, but the shimmer of the sequins felt more like a spotlight on her insecurities. As she glanced around the room, she took in the lavish decorations. A grand Christmas tree adorned with sparkling ornaments, garlands draped elegantly over the mantel, and the faint sound of holiday music playing in the background. Yet, despite the festive surroundings, a sense of unease settled in her stomach. Why did I agree to this? Amelia whispered to herself, taking a deep breath as she tried to steady her racing heart. It was her first Christmas as William's wife, and the weight of the occasion loomed heavily over her. She felt like an outsider in this world of wealth and tradition, where every corner of the mansion seemed to echo with the laughter and memories of William's late wife, Clara. "Amelia, darling, are you ready?" William's voice pulled her from her thoughts. He appeared at the doorway, a warm smile on his handsome face. His dark hair was slightly tousled, and his blue eyes sparkled with a mix of excitement and anxiety. Everyone is gathered in the dining room. I think they're about to start the toast. "I'll be right there," she replied, forcing a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. As he turned to leave, she caught a glimpse of his expression and eagerness to make this Christmas special, to create new memories while still holding on to the past. Amelia understood his intentions, but couldn't shake the feeling that she was stepping into a role she was not fully prepared for. As she made her way to the dining room, Amelia's heart raced. She had met Agnes, her mother-in-law, only a few times since their wedding, and each encounter had been fraught with tension. Agnes had a way of making her feel small, as if her very presence was a reminder of Clara, a woman who had been not just a wife, but a beloved matriarch of the Kensington family. The dining room was elegantly set, the long table adorned with a pristine white tablecloth, gleaming silverware, and a centerpiece of red and gold candles. The guests, a mix of family members and close friends, looked up as Amelia entered. She offered a tentative wave, her stomach nodding as she spotted Agnes at the head of the table. "Ah, there's our lovely Amelia," Agnes called out, her voice dripping with a forced cheerfulness. She was a striking woman, her silver hair meticulously styled, and her attire impeccably chosen, but there was an air of ice around her that made Amelia shiver. "Come, sit next to me. I've been eager to hear about your plans for the holidays." Amelia hesitated for a moment before taking a seat beside Agnes, acutely aware of the weight of the woman's gaze upon her. "Thank you, Agnes. I appreciate it," she said, trying to sound confident. "Plans," Agnes repeated, her tone shifting as she leaned in slightly. "You do know that Christmas in this family is quite a tradition. I hope you're not planning any unorthodox celebrations." Amelia felt heat rise to her cheeks. "Oh, no! I wouldn't dream of it. I just wanted to blend in and celebrate however you and William liked." "Blend in?" Agnes echoed, a small, sardonic smile playing on her lips. "That's the spirit, dear. Just remember, our traditions are what keep us together, especially in memory of Clara." William returned to the table, lifting his glass for the toast. "Ladies and gentlemen, if I may have your attention." His voice boomed with authority, and Amelia felt a rush of gratitude for his presence. "I want to thank you all for being here tonight to celebrate Christmas with us. It means the world to me, and I hope it will mean just as much to you." As he spoke, Amelia's mind drifted back to the conversation with Agnes. She felt a pang of resentment at the implication that she needed to conform to a legacy she had not built. "Why must I compete with a ghost?" she thought bitterly, clenching her fists under the table. To family! William raised his glass, and everyone echoed him, their voices blending into a harmonious chorus. And to new beginnings. To family! Agnes echoed, her eyes flickering to Amelia with a sharpness that made her skin crawl. Thank you, Amelia murmured, raising her glass as well, but her heart felt heavy. She was determined to establish her own place in this family, yet every word from Agnes was like a reminder of her inadequacy. As the dinner progressed, Amelia found herself struggling to engage in light-hearted conversation. Most of the guests were warm and welcoming, but Agnes remained a constant shadow, her comments often laced with subtle jabs. So, Amelia, have you ever hosted a Christmas dinner before? I can imagine it might be a bit overwhelming for someone enthused to such grandeur. Amelia forced a smile, refusing to let Agnes see how deeply her words cut. Actually, I've hosted before, but in a much smaller setting. I'm looking forward to learning from all of you, she replied diplomatically, hoping to diffuse the tension. Oh, I'm sure you will. It's just that traditions are very important to our family, Agnes replied, her tone condescending. It would be a shame to stray from them. Of course, I understand the importance of tradition, Amelia said, her voice steady despite the turmoil inside. But I also believe in creating new traditions that honor the past while embracing the future. Ah, the future, Agnes said, her brow furrowing slightly. One must be careful not to forget who came before them while forging ahead. William caught the growing tension and quickly attempted to steer the conversation in a different direction. So, who's ready for dessert? I hear Amelia has a special recipe she's been dying to share. Dessert! Agnes exclaimed, her voice sharp enough to cut through the air. Isn't that just delightful? I hope it's something our family can truly appreciate. Amelia felt her heart race, a mix of embarrassment and anger swelling inside her. I brought a classic chocolate cake, Agnes. It's a family recipe one I thought you might enjoy, she replied, trying to keep her tone light. Ah, chocolate, how? Predictable, Agnes said with a dismissive wave of her hand. Amelia's hands trembled slightly as she set about serving the dessert, her cheeks burning. She was doing her best to fit into a family that seemed determined to make it impossible. She could feel Agnes's eyes boring into her back, and despite the festive atmosphere, she felt completely alone. Just as she was about to serve the last slice, she felt the weight of the room shift. The once lively chatter dwindled to a whisper, and Amelia turned to see William's expression tense, as if he were caught in a storm. The air crackled with unspoken words, and she could sense the discontent simmering just beneath the surface of their seemingly perfect family dinner. Amelia, dear, William said, trying to regain control of the atmosphere. After dessert, I thought we could share some memories of Clara. It's important to keep her spirit alive during the holidays. Wouldn't you agree? Yes, of course, Amelia replied, forcing a smile even as her heart sank. She understood the importance of honoring Clara, but the thought of doing so in front of Agnes made her stomach twist with anxiety. As the final slice of cake was served, Amelia felt a heavy weight settle upon her, the burden of expectations looming larger than the Christmas tree in the corner. She could feel Agnes's eyes on her, a constant reminder that no matter how hard she tried, she would never truly be accepted. Let's raise a glass to Clara, William said, his voice steady but laced with an undercurrent of tension. May her memory always guide us. To Clara, the guests echoed, but Amelia's heart was not in it. She felt like a stranger at her own table, lost in a sea of memories that did not include her. As the evening wore on, the warmth of the holiday spirit felt increasingly out of reach. Amelia realized that this Christmas would not be the joyous occasion she had hoped for, but rather a battleground where she would have to fight for her place in a family that seemed determined to hold on to the past. The thought filled her with a mix of determination and despair. She would find a way to belong, no matter the cost. Amelia sat at the lavishly set dining table, her heart pounding in her chest as she tried to focus on the clinking of silverware and the cheerful chatter of the guests around her. The grand dining room was adorned with twinkling lights and a magnificent centerpiece of holly and pine cones, but the festive atmosphere felt stiflingly heavy to her. She glanced at William, her husband, who sat at the head of the table, his face a mask of forced cheerfulness as he engaged in conversation with their guests. Just a few feet away, Agnes, her mother-in-law, was regaling everyone with stories of Christmases past, her voice warm yet tinged with an underlying sharpness that Amelia had come to dread. "Do you remember the Christmas when Clara made that incredible gingerbread house?" Agnes said, her eyes sparkling with nostalgia as she glanced around the table. She spent hours perfecting it. It was a masterpiece. "I still have pictures somewhere," she added, her smile unwavering as she scanned the table for reactions. Amelia felt her stomach twist at the mention of her husband's late wife. Clara had been a beloved figure, and Agnes's constant reminders of her existence felt like barbs directed at Amelia's own insecurities. Amelia was painfully aware that she would never be able to fill Clara's shoes, but Agnes's pointed comments made it clear that she didn't even want her to try. Yes, I've heard about that gingerbread house," Amelia managed to reply, forcing a smile that felt brittle on her lips. "It sounds lovely." "Lovely," Agnes scoffed lightly, her tone condescending. "It was more than lovely, dear. It was a tradition, something you simply don't understand having come from, well, a different background." The remark was subtle, but the implications were clear, like an invisible dagger aimed straight at Amelia's heart. Amelia narrowed her eyes, her frustration simmering beneath the surface. She had worked so hard to fit into this world, to be accepted by William's family, but Agnes's words left her feeling as though she were an outsider, a mere interloper in a life built on memories she could never share. "We had our own traditions growing up," she replied, trying to keep her voice steady. "My family always made tamales for Christmas. It's a lovely time of year for us, too." "Tamales?" Agnes raised an eyebrow, feigning surprise. "How quaint." She chuckled lightly, the sound like nails scratching against a chalkboard to Amelia's ears. "I suppose we can't all have the same kind of Christmas, can we?" William, sensing the tension rising like steam from a boiling pot, interjected. "Mom, let's not get into comparing traditions tonight. It's Christmas Eve, after all." His smile was tight, and Amelia could see the flicker of anxiety in his eyes. He wanted to smooth over the situation, but his effort only seemed to amplify the awkwardness in the air. "Of course, dear," Agnes replied, her tone deceptively sweet. "I just want to make sure Amelia understands what it means to be part of our family. Tradition is important." Her gaze bore into Amelia, a silent challenge that made Amelia's palms sweat. As the feast progressed, Amelia's mind raced. She thought back to her childhood, where every Christmas was a struggle. Her family had never had much money, and the holidays were often filled with more hope than actual celebration. Her mother would work tirelessly to provide a few gifts, and the joy they found in the holidays came from the togetherness rather than the material aspects. But now, in this mansion filled with extravagant decorations, with a mother-in-law who seemed to relish in her discomfort, Amelia felt like an imposter. "Amelia, dear, would you pass the mashed potatoes?" Agnes asked, her voice dripping with faux politeness. Amelia picked up the bowl and handed it across the table, her hand trembling slightly as she did so. "Thank you," Agnes said, but not before adding, "You know, Clara always made the best mashed potatoes. She had a special recipe. I'd be happy to share it with you if you'd like to learn." Amelia's heart sunk. She could feel the weight of Agnes's words pressing down on her, suffocating her spirit. "I appreciate that, Agnes, but I think I'll stick to my own recipes," she replied, trying to inject some confidence into her voice. "I'd love to share my tamale recipe with you sometime." "Oh, how charming," Agnes said, her smile barely concealing her disdain. "I'm sure it's unique." Amelia's frustration bubbled to the surface, and she desperately sought for a way to bridge the gap between them. You know, Christmas is about bringing families together and creating new traditions, she began, her voice shaking slightly. Maybe we could find a way to incorporate both of our traditions into this holiday. New traditions? Agnes scoffed, the disdain clear in her tone. You mean to replace Clara's legacy? I'm afraid that's quite impossible. The tension at the table reached a breaking point, and Amelia felt a hot rush of anger flooding her. I'm not trying to replace anyone, she exclaimed, her voice rising unexpectedly. I just want to be a part of this family, to create our own memories. Isn't that what Christmas is about? Well, dear, it's not as simple as that, Agnes replied coolly, her gaze unwavering. Some of us have been here a lot longer. You can't just waltz in and expect everything to change. As the conversation spiraled into a battleground of wills, Amelia felt tears pricking at the corners of her eyes. She hated feeling like this exposed and vulnerable in front of everyone. Just then, William, sensing the rising storm, attempted to change the subject. How about we talk about our plans for the new year? He suggested, his voice hopeful yet strained. But Agnes, ever the matriarch, was relentless. Plans for the new year? How can we even consider that when we haven't honored the old ones? She shot back, her voice laced with a fierce protectiveness. Clara would want us to remember her, not to forget her. The room fell silent, the air thick with tension. Amelia's heart raced as she pushed her chair back, feeling overwhelmed. I need a moment, she said, her voice trembling as she stood up from the table. She could feel their eyes on her, the weight of their scrutiny almost too much to bear. As she stepped away from the dining room, Amelia could hear the muffled sounds of laughter and conversation behind her, but it felt like she was walking away from a different world. She fled to the nearby living room, her heart pounding with a mix of frustration and despair. But as she turned a corner, her eyes caught sight of something shiny peeking out from behind a large antique cabinet. Curiosity piqued. She approached it, kneeling down to investigate. It was an old tape recorder, dusty and forgotten, and as she reached for it, she felt a surge of nostalgia. William must have kept this. Hidden away, she murmured to herself, brushing off the dust. In a moment of impulsive curiosity, she pressed the play button, and to her surprise, the recorder whirred to life, crackling before settling into a soft, clear sound. Suddenly, the voice of Clara filled the room, warm and comforting. William, my love, Clara's voice resonated. I want you to promise me something. No matter what happens, always remember that family is everything. You need to keep your heart open to love, even if it feels difficult. Amelia's breath caught in her throat. She felt as if someone had turned on a light in the darkness. Clara's words washed over her like a soothing balm, and for the first time that night, the tension in her chest began to ease. As she listened intently, Clara continued, her voice filled with emotion. I know I might not be here forever, but I want you to find happiness. If that means letting someone new into your life, I want you to do it. It's what I would want for you. Tears streamed down Amelia's cheeks as the weight of Clara's love enveloped her. She finally felt a connection to the woman who had seemed like a shadow looming over her. Clara had wanted this. She had wanted William to be happy. Suddenly, footsteps echoed from the dining room, and Amelia quickly turned off the recorder, her heart racing with the sudden fear of being discovered. But in that moment of vulnerability, she realized that perhaps she didn't need to see Clara as a rival anymore. Instead, she could view her as a guiding light leading her toward acceptance and understanding. With renewed resolve, Amelia wiped her tears and stood tall, ready to face whatever awaited her back at the table. She would find her place in this family, not by replacing Clara, but by honoring her memory and carving out a space for herself in the warmth of the home they had created together. The atmosphere around the lavish dining table was thick with tension, the flickering candlelight casting shadows on the faces of the guests. As Amelia stood up to serve the dessert, her heart raced. She could feel the weight of Agnes's piercing gaze on her back, as if the older woman was dissecting every movement, every breath. Amelia had always imagined herself in a fairy tale Christmas, surrounded by laughter and warmth. But this felt more like a scene from a Gothic drama, where every word could ignite a conflict. "Would you like some pie, Agnes?" Amelia forced a smile, trying to break the oppressive silence. Her hands trembled slightly as she offered the slice, her fingers brushing against the fine china. Agnes looked at the pie with a mix of disdain and disinterest. "I suppose it's better than that store-bought nonsense you served last time," she replied, her tone dripping with condescension. "Clara always made the best pies from scratch. I still remember how the kitchen would smell on Christmas Eve." Amelia's heart sank. The mention of Clara was like a dagger to her chest, and she could feel the heat rising in her cheeks. "I'm trying my best to honor the traditions," she said, her voice barely above a whisper, fighting against a lump forming in her throat. "Maybe it would help if you tried a little harder," Agnes shot back, her eyes narrowing with each word. "This family is built on memories, dear. You can't just waltz in and expect everything to change." William, seated at the head of the table, looked between the two women, his expression a mix of concern and helplessness. "Come on, let's not make this about Dash." "About what, William?" Agnes interrupted, her voice rising. "About the fact that she will never be Clara? That she doesn't even know how to keep our family traditions alive." Amelia set the pie down, her heart pounding in her chest. "I'm not trying to replace Clara," she said, her voice shaking with emotion. "I'm just trying to find my place here. Maybe if you'd let me in, we could create new memories together." Agnes snorted, her expression hardening. "New memories? You think that's possible? Clara was the heart of this family. You're just an interloper, a distraction." "Enough!" William's voice cut through the tension, firm and commanding. "You both need to stop this. It's Christmas, for heaven's sake. Can't we just enjoy this meal?" Amelia felt the tears welling in her eyes, but she blinked them back, unwilling to give Agnes the satisfaction of seeing her cry. "I just want to be part of this family," she said, her voice strained. "I didn't ask for this." The tension in the room was palpable. Amelia could feel the air crackling with unspoken words and buried resentments. She took a deep breath, trying to steady herself, but the ache in her chest only grew stronger. The memories of her difficult childhood flooded her mind times when she had fought for acceptance, for love. Now, she found herself in a similar battle, and this time it felt as if she were losing. "You're not fighting for a place. You're fighting for a position," Agnes retorted, her words sharp and cold. "You want to be the matriarch, but you need to understand that this position is earned. You don't just waltz in and take over." Amelia's frustration boiled over. "I'm not trying to take over anything. I just want to create a family with William, a family that includes you too. But you make it impossible." Agnes leaned back in her chair, crossing her arms as she regarded Amelia with a look of disdain. "Then you should have thought about that before marrying him. You can't have a family without understanding its history, its roots. Clara was the one who held everything together." As Amelia listened to Agnes's words, a wave of sadness washed over her. She wanted to scream, to defend herself, but instead, she felt a deep sense of loss. The weight of Agnes's expectations pressed down on her, suffocating her spirit. She turned to William, hoping for a sign of support, but saw only the furrowed lines of worry etched on his forehead. "Amelia!" He started, but Agnes's voice drowned him out. "Your wife needs to understand that she's not just stepping into a role. She's stepping into a legacy," Agnes declared, her voice rising. "Clara worked hard to create a space for us, and it's not something to be taken lightly." Amelia felt a surge of anger at Agnes's dismissive tone. "I respect Clara's legacy, but I am not Clara. I am Amelia, and I'm here because I love William. Can't you see that? Love isn't enough." Agnes snapped, her face flushed with irritation. "You need to prove yourself. You need to show that you can handle the responsibilities of this family." "I didn't ask to prove anything," Amelia shot back, her voice trembling with emotion. "I just wanted to be accepted, to belong." Acceptance is earned, not given freely, Agnes replied coolly, her gaze unwavering. Amelia took a deep breath, fighting to keep her composure. If that's how it is, then maybe I don't belong here after all, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. The thought of walking away, of leaving this suffocating tension behind, was tempting, but she couldn't give up on William. With tears stinging her eyes, she stood up abruptly, pushing her chair back with a loud scrape against the floor. "Excuse me," she murmured, her heart pounding as she made her way out of the dining room, desperate to escape the judgmental atmosphere. As she stepped into the hallway, the cool air kissed her flushed cheeks, providing a momentary reprieve from the storm of emotions swirling within her. She could hear the muffled voices of William and Agnes behind her, but she didn't want to listen. She needed a moment to breathe, to collect herself. Amelia walked aimlessly through the grand mansion, her mind racing. Every corner of the house seemed to echo with the laughter and warmth of a family that felt impossibly distant. She felt lost, like a ghost haunting a world she could never truly inhabit. Her thoughts drifted to her childhood, the struggles she faced, the longing for acceptance that had always driven her. Suddenly, as she turned a corner, her eyes caught sight of a small wooden cabinet tucked away against the wall. Curious, she approached it, running her fingers across the polished surface. She opened the cabinet door, revealing a collection of old books and trinkets, remnants of a life that had once flourished within these walls. Among the items, something caught her eye: a small, dusty tape recorder. It appeared to be forgotten, a relic of the past. Amelia hesitated for a moment, then reached for it, her fingers brushing against the buttons. She felt an unexplainable urge to press play, as if the device held some hidden truth that could bridge the gap between her and Agnes. With a shaky hand, she pressed the button, and the recorder whirred to life. The sound of a voice filled the air, soft and familiar, yet distant. "William, my love," it began, and Amelia's heart skipped a beat. It was Clara's voice. She stood frozen, the world around her fading away as Clara's words wrapped around her like a warm embrace. "I hope that when you listen to this, you remember the love we shared," Clara continued, her voice filled with tenderness. "Family is everything, and I want you to find happiness again. I want you to be surrounded by love." Amelia felt tears streaming down her cheeks as she listened, the warmth of Clara's spirit flooding through her. "Do not let the past dictate your future. Embrace the new beginnings, William. Love is meant to be shared, not hoarded." The words resonated deeply within Amelia, filling her with a sense of hope she hadn't felt in a long time. She closed her eyes, allowing Clara's voice to wash over her, each syllable a balm for her wounded heart. For a moment, the weight of Agnes's disdain lifted, replaced by the understanding that love could transcend generations. As the recording played on, Amelia felt a shift within herself. Clara's voice wasn't just a reminder of the past. It was a call to embrace the present. She could build a life with William, one that honored Clara's memory while creating new traditions of her own. Suddenly, the door swung open, and William stepped into the hallway, his expression a mix of concern and curiosity. "Amelia, are you okay?" he asked, his voice filled with worry. She quickly wiped her tears, the recorder still playing softly in her hands. I found this," she stammered, her heart racing as she gestured toward the device. "It's Clara's voice." He stepped closer, his eyes widening as he recognized the faint sound. "You press play?" he asked, a flicker of hope in his gaze. "Yes," she replied, her voice trembling. And she said to embrace the new beginnings. That love is meant to be shared. William's expression softened and he reached out, taking her hands in his. Clara always believed in love. She would want us to find our way together. As they stood there, united by Clara's message, Amelia felt as Amelia stepped out of the dining room, the clatter of cutlery and the forced laughter of the guests faded into the background. Her heart raced, a whirlwind of emotions swirling within her. She could still feel Agnes's piercing gaze on her back, the weight of the older woman's disapproval pressing heavily against her. Amelia leaned against the cool wall of the expansive mansion, trying to catch her breath as she wiped away the tears that threatened to spill from her eyes. This was supposed to be a joyous occasion, a celebration of love and family during the festive season. Instead, it felt like a battlefield, with Agnes playing the role of an unyielding general, determined to protect the legacy of her late daughter-in-law, Clara. Amelia's heart ached with the realization that she would never be able to escape the shadow of the woman who had once held William's heart. As she wandered through the elegantly decorated rooms, her fingers brushed against the ornate furnishings, a stark contrast to her humble upbringing. The walls were adorned with family portraits, capturing moments of joy and laughter, but they did little to ease her discomfort. She felt like an intruder in a world that didn't quite belong to her. In the corner of the grand living room, her eye caught an unusual glimmer. Curious, she moved closer, discovering a small, antique recording device tucked away on a shelf, partially obscured by a stack of old books. The device looked like something straight out of a bygone era. A wave of nostalgia washed over her as she picked it up, its weight surprisingly hefty in her hands. "What is this doing here?" she murmured to herself, brushing off a thin layer of dust that had settled over it. In that moment, an impulsive thought crossed her mind. Perhaps listening to a recording from Clara would help her understand the woman who had been such a significant part of William's life, the woman whose memory loomed so large. With a determined sigh, she pressed a small button on the side, her heart fluttering with a mix of anticipation and dread. To her surprise, the device whirred to life, crackling softly before revealing a voice that was both familiar and foreign. It was Clara's voice, warm and inviting, laced with a gentle laughter that seemed to fill the room. "William, can you believe how much we've been blessed this year?" Clara's voice resonated through the air, and Amelia felt a chill run down her spine. "Our little family is growing, and I couldn't be happier." Amelia found herself captivated. She had never heard Clara speak, only the stories shared by William. The sound of her voice brought an unexpected wave of warmth, as if Clara were present in the room. "Clara, you always know how to make everything seem magical," William responded, his tone light and affectionate. "But I worry sometimes. It's a lot of pressure trying to keep everything perfect for you and the kids." "Don't worry, love," Clara reassured, her laughter echoing in the air like soft chimes. "We can't control everything, and that's okay. What matters is that we love each other and create memories together. That's what family is all about." Amelia's breath hitched in her throat. She had always yearned for that kind of familial love and connection, something she had felt was just out of reach for her. The words resonated deeply within her as she clutched the device tighter, unable to tear herself away from the unfolding dialogue. "Remember, William, happiness is not just about the big moments. It's in the small things, too. The laughter at dinner, the stories we share, the love we give each other," Clara continued, her voice filled with sincerity. "I hope you always remember that, even when I'm not here." Amelia's heart ached with a sudden pang of sorrow. The vulnerability in Clara's words struck a chord, and for a brief moment, she felt a connection to the woman she had always viewed as an adversary. Clara had spoken about love and happiness with such passion, and yet it was evident that she had also known fear and uncertainty. Just then, Agnes's voice cut through the air, filled with disbelief. "Where did that come from?" she exclaimed, her eyes wide with shock as she entered the room, having followed the sound of Clara's voice. Amelia's heart raced as she realized she had inadvertently drawn Agnes into the moment. The older woman's face paled, and all of a sudden, the warmth of Clara's words turned cold. Amelia felt trapped, caught between the past and present, as Agnes stood rigid, her expression a mixture of anger and sorrow. "Turn it off," Agnes demanded, her voice shuddering with emotion. Amelia hesitated, her thumb hovering over the button. "But it's Clara," she whispered, her own emotions battling against the fear of Agnes's wrath. She's talking about family and love. Maybe we should listen. Enough! Agnes's voice rose, fierce and protective. You don't understand what this means, Amelia. Clara's memory is not something you can just play with. Amelia felt a surge of frustration. I'm not trying to play with her memory. I'm trying to understand. Tension hung thick in the air as the two women faced each other. The recording still playing softly in the background. Clara's voice continued, unaware of the emotional storm brewing in her absence. William, promise me that no matter what happens, you'll keep our family close, Clara said, her voice now imbued with a sense of urgency. I want our children to know that love conquers all. I want them to feel safe and cherished. With each word, Amelia felt her resolve strengthen. She could see that Agnes was struggling, caught in a battle of her own, the battle to preserve Clara's legacy while simultaneously fighting against the encroaching reality of change. Agnes, Amelia said softly, her own voice steadying as she stepped closer. Clara wanted us to be happy. She wanted William to find love again. This recording, it's a reminder that family is what we make of it. Agnes's eyes glistened with unshed tears, her defenses wavering. You don't know what it's like to lose someone you love, she whispered, her voice breaking. Clara was everything to me. I can't let her go. Amelia felt a pang of empathy for the older woman, realizing that Agnes's hostility stemmed from her own grief and fear of losing the connection to her late daughter. The tension in the room shifted, and for a moment, they stood together in silence, the echo of Clara's voice weaving through the space between them. As the recording continued to play, Clara's warmth enveloped them both. Remember, love is the greatest gift we can give. No matter how much time passes, love binds us together, her voice echoed, a soothing balm for the wounds of the past. In that moment, Amelia understood this was not just about her and Agnes. It was about honoring Clara's memory, about finding a way to forge a new path together. With a deep breath, Amelia reached out, offering a tentative hand towards Agnes. I want to understand Agnes. I want us to honor Clara's memory together as a family. Agnes's gaze softened, the walls she had built around herself beginning to crumble. I don't know if I can, she admitted, her voice trembling with vulnerability. Then let's take it one step at a time, Amelia replied, her heart swelling with hope. We can find a way to make this family work, to keep Clara's spirit alive through our love for one another. For the first time that evening, a flicker of understanding passed between them, igniting a small flame of possibility within the somber atmosphere. Clara's voice continued to play, a gentle reminder of the love that once filled these walls and the love that could still flourish if they allowed it. As Agnes took a deep breath, her hand slowly reaching for Amelia's, the air shifted, the tension that had once filled the room beginning to dissipate. They stood there, united by the echo of Clara's words, the past intertwining with the present, as they prepared to navigate the uncertain waters of their shared future together. The atmosphere in the grand dining room was thick with tension, the flickering candlelight casting shadows on the faces of the guests. Amelia sat at the table, her heart racing as she tried to gather her thoughts. The unexpected revelation from the old recording still echoed in her mind, intertwining with the emotions that had been boiling beneath the surface throughout the evening. She glanced at Agnes, who now sat pale and speechless, staring into her wine glass as if it held the answers to the turmoil in her heart. Amelia felt as if the room had shrunk around her, the walls closing in as she struggled to cope with the weight of the moment. The voice of Clara, William's late wife, had reverberated through the room, a ghostly reminder of the love that once filled the space. Clara's words had been tender and poignant, speaking of family, love, and the importance of happiness. But now, all Amelia could feel was the sharp sting of Agnes's judgment, the icy barbs of her comments piercing through her own insecurities. Amelia, are you all right? William's voice broke through her thoughts, his brow furrowed with concern. He reached out to touch her hand, but she pulled it away, overwhelmed by the emotions swirling inside her. She couldn't look at him, couldn't bear to see the disappointment in his eyes, the way he struggled to balance the weight of his past with the present. I don't know, William, she whispered, her voice trembling. I thought I could handle this, but it's just too much. She glanced at Agnes, whose expression had shifted from one of disdain to confusion, the impact of Clara's voice clearly affecting her more than she could have anticipated. Clara wanted you to be happy, Amelia, William said gently, his voice steady but laced with urgency. She always believed in love, in second chances. You have to believe that too. But Agnes suddenly spoke up, her voice cutting through the room like a knife. Believe what? That I'm supposed to just forget about her? That I should embrace you as if you're the daughter-in-law I never wanted? Her tone was sharp, and for a moment, the room fell silent, the tension palpable. Amelia felt her heart race. I'm not trying to replace anyone, Agnes. I just want to be part of this family. I want to honor Clara's memory, not erase it. Her voice rose, fueled by a mix of anger and desperation. She felt like a stranger in a house filled with ghosts, an outsider battling against the memories that loomed large. Then why do you keep pushing me away? Agnes shot back, her eyes narrowing. Every time I try to share something about Clara, you act as if I'm insulting you. Do you think this is easy for me? I lost my daughter, Amelia. I lost my best friend. I know that. Amelia cried, her voice breaking. But I'm not the enemy here. I'm just trying to find my place, and every time I turn around, it feels like you're reminding me I'll never be good enough. Clara was perfect. I can never live up to her. Her breath hitched, and tears brimmed in her eyes. William ran a hand through his hair, frustration evident on his face. Enough! This isn't helping anyone. We're supposed to be celebrating Christmas. For God's sake. He pushed back his chair, the sound echoing in the silence. Amelia, please. You need to understand that I love Clara deeply, and I always will. But I also want to make new memories. I want to build a future with you. Do you think I don't know that? Amelia retorted, her voice laced with bitterness. But you can't expect me to just step into Clara's shoes. I'm not her, and I never will be. The words hung heavy in the air, each syllable weighted with her frustration. Agnes's eyes glistened with unshed tears as she looked at her son, the realization of the rift between them becoming painfully clear. William, I don't want to lose you too. I don't want to feel like I'm being replaced. Clara was my little girl. How can I let that go? The vulnerability in Agnes's voice made Amelia pause, her anger momentarily subsiding. She had been so focused on her own hurt that she had failed to see the depth of Agnes's pain. The woman before her was not just a mother holding on to the past, but a grieving parent clinging to the only memories she had left. Agnes. Amelia began, her voice softer now. I'm not trying to take anything away from you. I just want to be accepted, to be part of this family. I can't change the past, but I can help create new memories. We can honor Clara together. William nodded, his expression a mixture of hope and caution. That's right, Mom. Clara would want us to support each other. She wouldn't want us at odds, especially not during the holidays. His voice was steady, but Amelia could see the tension in his jaw, the tightness of his shoulders. Agnes looked between. The two of them, her heart heavy with regret and longing. I just don't know how to do that, she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. Every time I see you, Amelia, I see Clara, and it breaks my heart. I don't want to feel this way. I want to be happy for you, but... Amelia took a deep breath, her heart aching for the woman who had, until now, seemed like her adversary. I understand. I really do. I see Clara in everything here too. But I also see you, Agnes. You're not just her mother. You're an amazing woman, and I want to know you, to understand you. I want us to be a family. Agnes's brow furrowed as she processed Amelia's words. You really mean that? she asked, her voice trembling. I do, Amelia replied, sincerity pouring from her. I want to learn about Clara, about the traditions you shared. I want to honor her memory, but I also want to create new ones with you and William. Please, let's find a way to do this together. Silence enveloped the room as Agnes absorbed Amelia's words. The tension that had once seemed insurmountable began to dissipate, replaced by a fragile sense of hope. For the first time that evening, the three of them were united by a shared desire to heal rather than to hurt. I want that too, Agnes finally said, her voice breaking as tears streamed down her cheeks. I've been so scared of losing you both that I forgot what really mattered. I don't want to fight anymore. I want to remember Clara with love, not with bitterness. Amelia felt a wave of relief wash over her. Then let's do it together, she offered, reaching out to Agnes. Let's celebrate her life and the love she brought into our lives. We can make this a new beginning. William smiled softly, a glimmer of hope in his eyes as he watched the two women begin to bridge the gap that had formed between them. That's the spirit. Clara would be proud of both of you, he said, his voice thick with emotion. As the three of them sat together, a newfound understanding began to blossom in the once tense atmosphere. The weight of the past still lingered, but now it was accompanied by the promise of a brighter future, one where love could flourish even in the face of loss. The Christmas lights outside twinkled brightly, casting a warm glow over the mansion, a symbol of hope and renewal for the family gathered within. The atmosphere in the grand dining room of the Kensington mansion was thick with tension, punctuated only by the remnants of the earlier confrontation. Amelia stood in the hallway, her heart racing as she wiped away the tears that had escaped her moments ago. She felt the weight of Agnes's piercing gaze even from this distance, as if the older woman's disappointment were a tangible force pressing down on her. Why can't she just accept me? Amelia whispered to herself, her voice trembling. I'm not trying to replace Clara. I just want to be part of this family. She struggled to breathe, the anxiety swirling inside her like a storm. She took a deep breath, determined to compose herself, but the echoes of Agnes's stinging words lingered. Meanwhile, in the dining room, the atmosphere had shifted. William, still reeling from the revelation of the tape, sensed the urgency of the moment. He rose from his chair, his brow furrowed with concern. Agnes, we need to talk about this, he said, his voice firm yet gentle. You can't keep doing this to Amelia. She deserves a chance. Agnes, her face pale and eyes glistening, looked at her son with a mixture of anguish and anger. You don't understand William, she exclaimed, her voice rising. Clara was everything to this family. She was the heart and soul. And now you want to just erase her memory? This woman is trying to step into her shoes. Mom, William interjected, frustration bubbling beneath his calm exterior. This isn't about erasing Clara. It's about moving forward. You're holding on to a ghost, and it's suffocating us all. Us. Agnes scoffed her, voice tinged with bitterness. What about me? I lost my daughter-in-law. It's not easy to watch you with someone else. You're supposed to be grieving, not replacing her. William felt the anger roil within him, but fought to keep his composure. Amelia isn't a replacement, Mom. She's a person. She's my wife now, and she wants to build a life with us, a life that honors Clara, not one that diminishes her memory. Agnes's expression shifted from anger to something deeper vulnerability. Her eyes softened, and for a fleeting moment, the walls she had built around herself began to crack. You don't understand, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Clara and I had our differences, but she was my daughter. I don't want to lose my son to this new life. Then let her in, Mom, William urged, stepping closer. You have to let her in. If you keep pushing her away, you might lose me too. In the hallway, Amelia listened, her heart clenching at the exchange. She knew how much Clara had meant to Agnes, but it was as if she had been cast in the role of the antagonist in a story she never wished to join. Taking another deep breath, She decided she had to face them. She couldn't hide any longer. Slowly, she entered the dining room, her eyes red but filled with determination. "I'm sorry," she said, catching their attention. "I didn't mean to cause any trouble tonight. I just wanted to be part of this family." Agnes turned to her, her expression softening further as she saw the vulnerability etched across Amelia's face. "It's not you, dear," she said, her voice breaking slightly. "It's just, I miss Clara. I miss her so much." "I can't imagine what you're feeling," Amelia replied, her voice steady despite the quiver in her heart. "But I'm not here to replace her. I loved William before I even met him, and that love is intertwined with the love he had for her." Agnes looked down at her hands, twisting the napkin in her lap. "It's just hard to reconcile," she murmured. "You walked through this house that was filled with Clara's laughter, and it feels like you're trying to take her place." "I'm not trying to take anything from you," Amelia insisted, stepping closer. "I know Clara was special, and I respect that. I want us to remember her together. I want to honor her memory, not erase it." William watched the two women, feeling the fragile threads of connection weaving between them. "Mom, Amelia is right," he said softly. "Clara wouldn't want you to suffer like this. She would want us to find happiness again, to support one another." Agnes's face fell, the realization hitting her hard. "But how can I let go of the past?" she asked, her voice cracking. "What if I forget her? What if she's just gone?" Amelia reached out tentatively, her hand brushing against Agnes's. "You won't forget her," she said, her voice filled with warmth. "She will always be a part of us, of you, of William, of this family. Let's create new memories together, ones that include her." Agnes looked up, tears brimming in her eyes. "I'm so scared," she admitted, her voice breaking. "I don't want to lose my son or the memory of my daughter-in-law. I don't know how to do this." Amelia felt a flicker of compassion ignite within her. "It's okay to be scared," she replied gently. "We can take this one step at a time. You don't have to do it alone." William stepped forward, placing a hand on Agnes's shoulder. "You won't lose us, Mom. We're family, and we'll figure this out together. Clara wouldn't want us to fight. She wanted us to love each other." As Agnes looked from William to Amelia, the weight of her grief began to lift. "I just don't want to feel like I'm losing Clara all over again," she confessed, tears streaming down her cheeks. "It hurts too much." Amelia's heart ached for the older woman. "I can't imagine how painful that must be," she said, her voice softening. "But I promise you, I'm here to support you. Together, we can keep Clara's memory alive, while also finding ways to create our own family traditions." Agnes hesitated, her walls slowly crumbling. "It's just so hard to let go of the past," she whispered, her voice laden with sorrow. "I know," Amelia replied, squeezing Agnes's hand gently. "But holding on to the past doesn't have to mean pushing away the present. We can honor Clara in our own way while embracing the future." In that moment, Agnes felt a flicker of hope. Maybe I can try," she said tentatively. "I just need time." "Time is all we need," William reassured her, his eyes filled with love for both women. "We can navigate this together, one step at a time." As Amelia and Agnes shared a tentative smile, the darkness of the previous moments began to dissipate, replaced by the light of understanding and compassion. The road ahead would not be easy, but for the first time, Amelia felt a sense of belonging, and Agnes glimpsed the possibility of healing. In the heart of the mansion, beneath the twinkling lights of the Christmas decorations, a fragile bond began to form, one that honored the past while embracing the future. The atmosphere in the lavish dining room began to shift as the echoes of Clara's voice faded into a poignant silence. Amelia stood frozen for a moment, her heart racing with a mix of unease and a strange sense of connection. She had never heard Clara's voice, yet it felt as if the late matriarch was reaching out from the past, bridging a gap that had seemed insurmountable moments before. Agnes, her face pale, and streaked with tears, seemed to be grappling with a whirlwind of emotions. The tension that had dominated the evening was now replaced by an air heavy with vulnerability. The guests exchanged glances, unsure of how to react, but it was clear that the recording had struck a chord deeper than anyone anticipated. "Agnes," William began, his voice breaking the silence, "I think we all need to talk about what just happened." He looked at his mother, whose expression was a mix of shock and sorrow. "This isn't just about you or Amelia. It's about us as a family." Agnes wiped her tears with the back of her hand. "I didn't mean for it to come to this," she whispered, her voice trembling. "I just wanted to keep Clara's memory alive. I thought I was protecting her legacy." Amelia's heart softened at the sight of Agnes's fragility. "I understand," she said gently, stepping forward. "I really do. I felt lost in this family, like I'm trying to fill shoes that are too big for me." The older woman shook her head, her brows furrowing in confusion. "But Clara was. She was my daughter. I thought you would. I thought you'd want to emulate her, to be like her." "I don't want to replace Clara," Amelia replied, her voice steadying as she found her footing. "I want to honor her, but I can't do that if I'm constantly being reminded that I'm not her." William sighed heavily, his shoulders slumping as he absorbed the weight of their words. "Agnes, you need to understand that Clara wouldn't want this. She wanted us to be happy, all of us. She wished for a family that supported one another, not one that was divided by fear and grief." "But I'm scared," Agnes admitted, her composure cracking as she spoke. "I'm scared of losing my son to you, Amelia. I'm terrified that I'll fade into the background, that my connection to Clara will disappear if I let you in." The younger woman's heart ached at those words. "I'm not trying to take him away from you," she said softly. "I want to create a new family dynamic, one that includes you. I want to know Clara through the stories you share, the traditions you hold dear." William looked between the two women, sensing the tension still lingering in the air. "Can't you see? You both have so much to offer each other. Agnes, you have memories and love to share. And Amelia, you bring new energy and hope to our family. Together, you can honor Clara in a way that keeps her spirit alive." Amelia took a step closer to Agnes, her voice dropping to a whisper. "I'm not here to compete with you. I want to create a space where we can all remember Clara together, where we can support each other. I know it's not easy, but I'm willing to try if you are." Agnes hesitated, her eyes darting around the room as if searching for an escape. But as she met Amelia's earnest gaze, something shifted within her. "You don't understand," she said, her voice cracking. "I've held on to Clara's memory so tightly, thinking that if I let go even a little, it would mean losing her forever. I don't know how to do this." "Neither do I," Amelia admitted, her voice trembling. "But I want to learn. I want to find a way to honor Clara together. She loved you, Agnes. She wouldn't want you to feel this way." The silence that followed felt electric, charged with the weight of unspoken fears and hopes. William watched intently, his heart racing as he hoped for a breakthrough. He could see the walls between the two women beginning to crack, the opportunity for healing glimmering like a candle in the darkness. "Maybe we can start small," he suggested, his tone encouraging. "What if we each shared a memory of Clara? Something that made us laugh, or something that made us feel loved?" Amelia looked at Agnes, her eyes gentle. "I'd love to hear about her. I want to know the woman who meant so much to you, who shaped the man I love." Agnes's breath hitched, and for a moment, she seemed lost in thought. "There was this one Christmas," she began, her voice softening as she recalled a cherished memory. "Clara had made this ridiculous sweater for William. It had a giant reindeer on it, all glittery and bright. She insisted he wear it to the family gathering, and he was mortified. But he wore it anyway because he loved her." William chuckled, a genuine smile breaking through the tension. "I remember that. I wanted to hide in a corner, but Clara just beamed at me, proud as could be. I couldn't let her down." Amelia smiled, the warmth of the story washing over her. That sounds like Clara. She had such a way of making everyone feel special. Agnes nodded, a small smile breaking through her tears. She did. She always believed that Christmas was a time for family, for laughter. She would plan these elaborate dinners, decorate the house for weeks, and then spend hours cooking. She wanted everyone to feel at home. "You're still her family," Amelia said gently. "You and William are all that's left of her legacy. Let's keep that spirit alive together." For a moment, Agnes seemed to contemplate the possibility. The thought of sharing Clara's memory rather than guarding it felt both terrifying and liberating. "I don't want to lose my connection to her," she finally admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "You won't," Amelia replied firmly. "I promise you, I will do everything I can to ensure Clara's memory lives on. But I can't do it alone. We need each other." William stepped closer, placing a reassuring hand on Agnes's shoulder. "Mom, we're still a family. We can adapt and change, but that doesn't mean we forget. It means we grow together." Agnes looked between her son and her daughter-in-law, the warmth of their presence slowly melting the icy grip of her fears. "It's going to take time," she said cautiously. "But maybe I can try." Amelia's heart soared at those words. "That's all I ask," she said, her eyes shining with hope. "Let's take it one step at a time. We can create new traditions that honor Clara while allowing us to build something new together." As the three of them stood in the dimly lit dining room, the weight of the past slowly began to lift, replaced by the flicker of possibility. The laughter and love that had once filled the halls of the Kensington mansion felt within reach once again. In that moment, the air was thick with a newfound understanding, a fragile yet hopeful bond forming between Agnes and Amelia. It was the beginning of something beautiful, a chance to rewrite their story together. Amelia stood there, the flickering firelight casting shadows on her tear-streaked face. The tension in the room lingered like a thick fog, but her heart was racing with a mix of compassion and frustration. She could see Agnes, her mother-in-law, sitting across the room, her hands trembling ever so slightly in her lap. The old woman's eyes were red from crying, and her usually composed demeanor was now fractured, revealing the depth of her sorrow. Amelia felt a surge of empathy for the woman who had made her life so difficult over the past months. "Agnes," Amelia began softly, her voice barely above a whisper. Don't," Agnes interrupted, her voice shaky yet firm. "You have no idea what it's like to lose someone you love, to feel them slip away while you stand helplessly by." Her gaze drifted to the fireplace, where the flames danced as if mocking her pain. "Clara was everything to me. She was my daughter, my best friend. And now it feels like I'm losing her all over again." The weight of those words hung in the air, and Amelia felt her heart twist in her chest. She had always seen Agnes as a formidable barrier between herself and William. But now, stripped of her defenses, Agnes was just a grieving mother. "I can't imagine how hard it must be for you," Amelia replied gently, stepping closer. "I'm not here to take Clara's place. I wanted to be part of this family." Agnes looked up, her expression softening slightly. "But do you really think you can?" she asked, a hint of vulnerability creeping into her voice. "You have no idea how much I've sacrificed to keep her memory alive. Every ornament on that tree, every tradition we upheld, they were all for Clara." Amelia swallowed hard, her throat tightening as she thought about the pressure Agnes had put on her. "I understand now. I didn't see it before, but I can see it clearly now. You're scared," she said, her voice steady. "You're scared of losing those memories, of losing William too, and I get that. I do." Agnes's eyes widened in surprise, as if she hadn't expected Amelia to reach out in such a way. "Scared?" she echoed, her voice tinged with disbelief. "You think I'm scared of you? I'm scared of forgetting her, of moving on. I feel like if I accept you, I'm betraying Clara." Amelia took a deep breath, feeling the weight of Agnes's emotions wash over her. "I promise. I would never want you to forget her. I want to honor her memory, just like you do. But I can't do it alone. We can't do it alone. We're family now, and that means we should be on the same team." Agnes's expression faltered, the walls she had built around her heart beginning to crack. "You don't know what you're asking. It's so easy for you to say that. You're the new wife. You have a fresh start, and I—" Her voice trailed off, the pain evident in her eyes. "I don't have a fresh start," Amelia countered, her voice rising slightly. "I've struggled my whole life to find a place where I belong, and I thought I'd finally found it here, but instead, I feel like I'm constantly being measured against Clara." The room fell silent, the only sound being the crackle of the fire. Agnes's expression shifted, a flicker of understanding passing between them. "You think I want to measure you against her?" she asked, her voice softer now, almost pleading. "I never wanted this. I don't know how to let go." Amelia stepped closer, her heart pounding. "What if we didn't have to let go? What if we could build something new together? Clara loved you, and she would want us to support each other, not tear each other apart." Agnes looked up at her, her eyes searching Amelia's face for any sign of dishonesty, but all she found was sincerity. "You really mean that?" she asked, her voice trembling. "You would really want to include me in your life with William?" "Absolutely," Amelia replied firmly. "I want us to be a family, Agnes. I want us to share our memories of Clara, to celebrate her life together. I don't want to take her place. I want to honor what she stood for." Agnes's expression shifted again, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "It's just so hard," she murmured, her voice breaking. "I feel so lost without her. Every corner of this house, every ornament, every smell, it all reminds me of Clara. I don't know how to face it without feeling like I'm betraying her." Amelia nodded, her heart aching for the older woman. "I can't pretend to understand your pain, but I can promise you this. Clara wouldn't want you to suffer. She would want you to find happiness, to find peace. And if I'm part of that, then I want to help. I want to make this house a home for both of us." Agnes stared at her, the battle between her grief and the possibility of a new relationship raging within her. "You really think we could do that? Create something new?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "I do," Amelia replied, her heart swelling with hope. "But it's going to take time, patience, and understanding from both of us. We need to talk, to share our stories. I want to hear about Clara, about what made her special to you. And I want to share my dreams for the future, too." Agnes wiped her tears away, her expression softening with each passing moment. "I've never been good at sharing," she admitted, a small, sad smile breaking through her sorrow. "I've always held everything close to my chest, afraid of losing it. Maybe it's time to open up," Amelia suggested gently. "You might find that sharing your memories of Clara with me could help you heal. I'm willing to listen, and I promise to honor her memory. Together, we can create a new legacy that includes both of us." Agnes took a deep breath, the weight of her grief still present, but now mixed with a glimmer of hope. "I don't know if I'm ready," she confessed, her voice trembling. "But maybe I can try." Amelia smiled, feeling a warm sense of connection growing between them. "That's all I ask," she said, her voice filled with encouragement. "Let's take it one step at a time. We can start with the Christmas traditions you've kept alive. I'd love to learn more about them." Agnes's eyes brightened at the mention of traditions, a flicker of enthusiasm igniting in her. "Clara loved baking Christmas cookies," she said, her voice suddenly animated. "And we used to decorate the tree together, telling stories about each ornament." "Then let's do that," Amelia urged, her heart swelling with excitement. "Let's make new memories while cherishing the old ones. Clara will always be a part of our lives, but we can add our own chapters to her story." As Agnes considered Amelia's words, the room felt lighter, the air shifting as if a weight had been lifted. You truly want this? Agnes asked, her voice trembling with uncertainty, yet tinged with hope. I do, Amelia affirmed, reaching out to take Agnes's hand gently. Together, we can honor Clara's memory and create a bond that will carry us through. In that moment, Agnes squeezed Amelia's hand, her resolve strengthening. All right, she said, her voice steadying. Let's try. For Clara. Together, Amelia said, smiling through her tears as the two women began to bridge the chasm that had separated them, one step at a time. The atmosphere in the grand dining room shifted as the emotional weight of the previous moments hung heavily in the air. William, taking a deep breath, sensed the fragile truce that had begun to settle between Amelia and Agnes. He knew this was a pivotal moment, one that could shape their future as a family. Amelia, he began, his voice steady but soft, I think we need to find a way to honor Clara tonight. She always believed in the importance of family. He glanced at Agnes, who had wiped her tears, her expression shifting from sorrow to contemplation. Amelia looked up, intrigued but guarded. What do you mean, William? She asked, her brow furrowed. I was thinking, William continued, choosing his words carefully, that we could transform this mansion into something meaningful. Clara always had a big heart, and she wanted to help those in need. What if we turn this place into a shelter or a community center for families who are struggling? It could be a way to keep her spirit alive and to bring our family closer together. Agnes stared at her son, her expression a mix of disbelief and hope. You really think that would work? She asked, her voice trembling slightly. I do, William replied, leaning forward. I think it would honor Clara's memory while also creating new memories for us. It's a way to build something together, a legacy for both of you. Just imagine this place could be filled with laughter and warmth instead of tension. Amelia's heart raced at the thought. A community center, she echoed, her mind racing with the possibilities. That could provide so much help to families in need, especially during the holidays. Agnes nodded slowly, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. But what if it doesn't work? What if we fail? She whispered, her voice barely audible. William reached across the table, taking his mother's hand in his. We won't fail. We'll do it together. Clara wouldn't want us to be afraid of failure. She would want us to try. He turned his gaze to Amelia. And I know you have ideas. You've always wanted to make a difference, haven't you? Amelia felt a swell of emotion in her chest. For so long, she had yearned for acceptance and recognition within this family, and now, here was an opportunity to contribute, to be seen as more than just William's new wife. I have thought about helping others, she admitted, her voice gaining strength. Growing up, I always wished there were places for families like mine to find support and care. I can help with organizing events, fundraising. I have connections that could help us get started. Agnes's expression softened as she listened to Amelia. You really mean that? You want to help? Absolutely, Amelia replied, her eyes locking onto Agnes's. We can create programs for children, support groups for parents. There's so much we can do, and it would be a way for us to remember Clara, to keep her spirit alive in a place that brings joy and hope. William smiled, his heart warming at the sight of the two women beginning to bridge the gap that had long divided them. See, this is what I meant. Clara wanted us to be a family that supports one another. If we work together, we can turn this mansion into a true haven. Agnes took a deep breath, visibly relaxing. I suppose I've been holding on to my grief for too long, she admitted. Clara would want us to move forward, to make a positive impact. I don't want to lose you, Amelia. I see now that we can be stronger together instead of apart. Amelia nodded, feeling a rush of relief and excitement. We can be allies in this. Let's honor Clara by doing something good. The tension that had filled the room began to dissipate, replaced by a newfound sense of purpose. William watched as the two women began to share ideas, their voices rising in enthusiasm. What if we have an annual Christmas event to kick off the center? Amelia suggested eagerly. We could invite families in the community to come and celebrate, offering food, gifts, and activities for the kids. It could be a way to bring people together and show them they're not alone. I love that idea, Agnes exclaimed, her earlier apprehension melting away. And we could partner with local businesses to provide donations and support. Clara loved this time of year. It would be perfect to honor her by giving back. William felt a swell of pride as he listened to them brainstorm. And we can create programs throughout the year, not just around the holidays. A food pantry, workshops, parenting, classes. The possibilities are endless. Amelia's eyes sparkled with inspiration. And we could involve the community in every step. I can reach out to schools and organizations to gather support. This can be a community effort, not just ours. Yes, Agnes agreed, her voice gaining strength. Clara would have loved to see the entire neighborhood come together. She always had a way of bringing people together, of making everyone feel welcome. As they spoke, William felt a warmth spreading through him. He had always known that his mother had a fierce love for Clara, but he could see that she was starting to understand that love could encompass more than just memories. It could also include new beginnings. We should set a date, a timeline to start planning, William suggested. We can invite some close friends tonight and share our vision. If they're on board, we can gain momentum quickly. Agnes looked at Amelia, her expression filled with determination. What do you think, dear? Are you ready to take this leap with us? I am, Amelia assured her, feeling a surge of confidence. Let's make this happen. For Clara. William beamed at both women, feeling as if a weight had been lifted from his shoulders. They had gone from a tense holiday dinner to a powerful moment of unity and purpose. As they continued to discuss plans, the air filled with laughter and ideas. The mansion, once a place overshadowed by grief and competition, began to feel more like a homemade space where love could flourish, intertwined with the memory of Clara. In that moment, as they envisioned their future together, William knew they were on the cusp of something beautiful. They would honor Clara's legacy, not just as her family, but as a community. And perhaps, just perhaps, they would find healing and joy in the process. As the evening deepened and the last remnants of tension began to dissipate, William stood up, clearing his throat to garner the attention of both Amelia and Agnes. The air was thick with emotion, and as the flickering candlelight danced across the table, shadows played on their faces, each reflecting a myriad of feelings, from sorrow to hope. Amelia, still moved by the earlier revelations, looked at William with a mix of curiosity and apprehension, while Agnes wiped away the tears that had fallen, her eyes now glistening with a hint of vulnerability. Before we conclude this night, William began, his voice steady but soft, there's something I need to share with both of you. It's something I found while going through Clara's belongings. He paused, gauging their reactions, and saw a flicker of interest, perhaps even hope in Amelia's eyes, while Agnes appeared tense, her fingers gripping the edge of the dining table. What is it, William? Agnes asked, her voice trembling slightly. The very mention of Clara's name sent a wave of emotion through the room, and Amelia instinctively leaned in closer, eager to hear what he had to say. William retrieved a small, neatly folded envelope from his pocket. The edges were worn, and the address was written in a familiar script, Clara's elegant handwriting. I found this tucked away in the back of a drawer, he continued, unfolding the letter carefully. It's a letter from Clara, written just a few weeks before. His voice trailed off, the weight of his words hanging in the air. Before she passed, Amelia whispered, her heart racing. She could feel the air thickening with anticipation, as if they were all holding their breath for what was to come. Yes, William replied, a hint of sadness creeping into his tone. I believe she intended for us to read it when the time was right. He took a deep breath, his eyes scanning the letter's contents. I think now is that time. With gentle reverence, he began to read aloud. My beloved family, he began, his voice steady yet filled with emotion. Asterisk, if you are reading this, it means I am no longer with you. I want you to know how deeply I love each of you and how much I wish for your happiness above all else. Asterisk, William glanced up at Amelia, who was listening intently, her expression softening as Clara's words enveloped her like a warm embrace. Agnes, too, was visibly moved, her eyes glistening as the memories of her daughter flooded back. Asterisk, life is unpredictable, and sometimes it feels overwhelming. But I know that you all have the strength to navigate through the storms. William, my dear, I hope you find joy again. You deserve it. Don't let my absence dim your light. Asterisk, I remember how she always wanted the best for you, William. Agnes murmured, her voice barely above a whisper, as if afraid to break the spell of the moment. William continued to read, his voice steady. Asterisk, Amelia, my sweet girl, I may not have known you as well as I wanted, but I see the love you have for my family. Hold on to that love and let it guide you. You are more than enough, and your heart will help heal the wounds. Asterisk, Amelia felt tears prick at the corners of her eyes. The warmth of Clara's words was a balm to her insecurities. They wrapped around her like a protective layer, lifting the weight she had carried since stepping into the mansion. She truly believed in me, she whispered, glancing at Agnes, who seemed lost in her memories. And Agnes, William read on, his voice thick with emotion. Asterisk, you are the matriarch of this family. Your strength has held us together, but I want you to remember that it's okay to let go sometimes. You don't have to carry the burden alone. Let your heart open to new beginnings. Asterisk, Agnes gasped softly, her hand flying to her mouth as she processed the words. Oh, Clara, she breathed, tears streaming down her cheeks. I fought so hard to keep everything the way it was, and I didn't realize I was pushing everyone away. William paused, looking at Agnes with compassion. It's never too late to change, Mom. Clara wanted us to support each other, to find a way to come together as a family. Amelia reached across the table, placing her hand on Agnes's. I want to help, Agnes. I know we've had our differences, but I wouldn't want to take Clara's place. I just want to honor her memory with you. Agnes looked at Amelia, her heart swelling with conflicting emotions. Do you really mean that? She asked, her voice trembling. I've been so afraid of losing my connection to Clara and to William that I didn't see how lost I was making you feel. William nodded encouragingly. We can create a new legacy together, honoring Clara's memory while allowing ourselves to grow. I think Clara would have wanted that more than anything. With a newfound sense of determination, Agnes wiped her tears and took a deep breath. You're right. I've been holding on to the past so tightly that I didn't realize I was suffocating the future. I'm sorry, Amelia. I've been so wrong. The warmth in the room shifted. It felt as if the air was clearing. Amelia squeezed Agnes's hand gently, a gesture of solidarity. I understand now it's not just about us. It's about our family, our shared love for Clara. We can build something beautiful together. William smiled, relief washing over him as he witnessed the two women begin to bridge the gap that had once seemed insurmountable. Let's do this together. We can honor Clara by creating a space that embodies her spirit of love and kindness. How about we turn the mansion into a refuge for families in need? Amelia's eyes brightened at the idea. I love that. Clara always wanted to help others. We could host events, provide support, and give families a place to feel safe and loved. Agnes nodded slowly, the idea taking root in her heart. I can help with the organization. Clara had so many ideas. I just need to remember them. The three of them sat in silence for a moment, letting the weight of their newfound resolution settle in. The warmth of the holiday season enveloped them, and the flickering lights around the table seemed to shine a little brighter. Finally, William reached for the letter and folded it carefully, placing it back into the envelope. This is just the beginning, he said, looking at both Amelia and Agnes, his heart swelling with pride. Together, We can create a legacy that honors Clara's memory and fosters love and support for generations to come. As Amelia and Agnes exchanged a glance filled with understanding, they both realized that the journey ahead would not be easy, but it was one they would embark on together. The tears they had shed earlier were now tears of hope, a promise of healing, and a commitment to a future where love triumphed over rivalry. "Let's toast to Clara," Amelia suggested, her voice filled with warmth, "to the love she shared and the family we are building in her honor." William raised his glass, followed by Agnes, who smiled through her tears. "To Clara," they echoed in unison. As their glasses clinked, there was a palpable shift in the atmosphere, a newfound bond forged in the fire of vulnerability and understanding, united in purpose. In that moment, the mansion transformed from a symbol of tension to a sanctuary of love, hope, and the promise of a brighter tomorrow, all thanks to the spirit of Clara that would forever guide them.